welcome to our second video. Actually, this is a part two of of my discussion about the international business environment. In the past video, okay, I'm gonna post the link on the description of this video. So if you want to go back there, it's okay. Um, in that video, I discussed the sociocultural and technological environment. Wherein, in this video, I'm going to discuss the economic environment and the political environment. So, kung paano ba nakaka-affect ang sitwasyon ng ekonomiya at ng politika sa isang bansa para sa isang business, whether domestic or international, nasa international level siya. So, let's discuss first the economic systems. So, economic systems, ayan, there are actually three types. If nagkaroon na kayo ng basic microeconomics before or any economic subject, so napag-aralan nyo na to. So, yun, it is capitalist, socialist, and mixed. Okay, later I will discuss those. Okay, this classification is based on the dominant method of resource allocation. So this is a market allocation, command, or central plan allocation, and mixed allocation. So let's first discuss the first allocation, which is the market allocation. Si market allocation, ang economic system niya is si capitalist or si capitalism. Okay. In market allocation, they rely on consumers to allocate resources. So, sa madaling sabi, si consumers will write the economic plan by deciding what will be produced by whom. So, eto, kung narinig nyo na rin yung term na consumerism, okay, so si consumers ang nagdidikta ng kung ano yung dapat i-produce, kung ano yung gusto ng consumer. So yun yung magdidikta sa mga businesses ng business processes nila and the products and services that they will offer. Anong role ng state or anong role ng government dito? The role of the state sa market allocation economy is to promote competition and ensure consumer protection. So yun yung role niya. And according to 2020 Economic Freedom of the World Index, so these are the countries na under ng market allocation or consumer or capitalism. So they are Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Switzerland, US. So they are mas malaki yung percentage ng economy nila na under ng capitalism or market allocation. Or naiimpluwensyahan ng consumers ang mga products and services na ipoproduce sa bansa na yon. The second allocation is the command allocation or ito yung sinasabi nating socialism. Okay, so familiar naman na tayo dito. Ito naman, ang difference niya kay market allocation, si state has broad powers to serve the public interest. These include deciding which products to make and how to make them. So in command allocation, consumers are free to spend their money on what is available. So kung ano lang yung available, yun yung bibili nila. But state planners make decision about what is produced. So si government, siya yung magdidikta kung ano yung dapat na ibenta and therefore what is available. So yun, kung ano yung dapat ibenta at yung mga dapat lang na maging available sa bansa nila. Sa command allocation, because demand exceeds supply, the elements of the marketing mix are not used as strategic variables. So these are some of the socialist countries: China, Cuba, Vietnam. So if you're going to look at it, parang mga communist countries yung madalas na under ng socialist. Okay, bakit? For example, 'di ba sa China, if you will remember the Google case study, so sila yung nagdidikta, what are you going to put sa iyong website? Ano yung mga dapat mong i-filter? Ano yung mga censored? So yun. So because mas malaki ng percentage ng economy nila ang command allocation or ang socialist. Now, the third economic system or allocation is mixed, or we call it mixed economy. So, yan. In the market economy, the command allocation sector is a proportion of gross domestic product, okay, GDP. So, in reality, wala namang pure na market or command allocation system sa mga ekonomiya natin. Lahat ng market system have a command sector and all command systems have a market sector. So, lahat naman merong, syempre lahat merong government. So, syempre makikitake part ang government and ang consumers also in deciding what products ang i-offer nila. Ang difference lang is yung percentage. So for example, sa China, mas malaki yung percentage na ang nagde-decide ay government kesa ang mga consumers. Wherein sa US, mas malaki ang percentage na nagde-decide ang consumers or ang consumers ang nagde-determine ng mga products and services na i-offer sa bansa nila compare sa government nila. Now, let's proceed to the discussion of international economic systems. So, the principal forces ng development ng economic blocks. Okay, when we say economic blocks or trade blocks, ito yung mga intergovernmental agreement na often part of a regional intergovernmental organizations wherein binabasag or tinatanggal nila yung mga barriers to trade. Nire-reduce nila o kaya ini-eliminate among kung dun sa mga kasali ng mga bansa. So these are the European Union. Ayan, ito yung, and then the economic pillars, the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, evolution ng World Trade Organization from General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. So let's discuss each of this. So, ang una-una talagang naging economic bloc or naging isa sa organization na natatag para ma-reduce yung trade barriers ay yung European Union. What is this? So European Union aims to ensure the free movement of people, goods, services, and capital within the internal market. So si European Union, 27 member states niya na nandoon sa Europe yung nagpasimula nito. So parang nung una, if I'm not mistaken, 6 lang sila and then na sumali yung iba pang mga bansa. So, ang primary purpose nila is to develop an internal single market. Meron silang standardized system kahit magkakaiba-ibang bansa sila. So, 'di ba imagine kasi when you enter a country, sobrang helpful nito kasi when you enter a country, iba yung ano niya, yung law niya. Tapos when you enter another country in Europe, iba din. It's the same with us. Pero dahil nagkaroon nga ng union, okay, ng union sa kanila, meron na silang standardized system of laws na applicable sa lahat ng member na states. Okay? And syempre, hindi lang iyon inisip ng iilan, but it was agreed upon sa lahat ng representative ng mga states na kasali. So, it's the same with ASEAN, di ba yun, if you're familiar with that. Okay, now, after nung European Union, actually it was founded after the World War II. Okay, so iniisip nila kung paano sila makakabangon from that war. Okay, pero and then I read also na after European Union was built or was founded, wala nang naging war between dun sa mga countries in Europe na kasali sa union na ito. So it's not only for the international trade but also for peace, okay, and prosperity among all the nations. Now, dahil na-inspire sila sa European Union, itinayo ngayon ang iba't iba pang union, nakasama na ang Asia and other continents. So, World Bank, okay, ang original name niya talaga or ang complete name niya is the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So, from the name itself, for reconstruction and development. Kaya, di ba, sabi nila, andai daw nating utang sa World Bank. So, yun, kasi every paggawa ng kalsada, ganyan, if we're running out of funds, pwede tayong manghiram sa World Bank. Okay. So, the World Bank Group is one of the world's largest sources of funding and knowledge for developing countries. So, ang commitment nila is to reduce poverty, increasing shared prosperity, and promoting sustainable development. So, ang bawat institusyon sa World Bank Group ay para siyang well represented ng mga governments. Para siyang bank. Bank talaga siya na meron silang basic share sa capital. Tapos, para siyang corporation na kung gaano karami yung share mo, ganun din yung votes mo. So, yun. So, your votes will be proportional to your shareholding. So, ma'am, paano po sila nakakapag-raise ng funds sa World Bank? So, nakapag-raise sila sa financial market. So, investing in stocks, ayan, earnings ng mga investments nila, fees na binabayaran ng mga member countries. So, parang may subscription siya. So, yun, contributions ng mga members, especially yung mga mas mayayaman na mga members or bansa. And syempre, yung mga nanghihiram sa kanila, tapos kapag binayaran na yung loan, syempre may interest yun. So, yun. So, those are the sources of funds ng World Bank. Next naman is the International Monetary Fund or IMF. So, si IMF, it works to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, promote high employment and sustainable economic growth, reduce poverty around the world while periodically depending on the World Bank for its resources. So si IMF, connected naman din siya sa World Bank. Ang difference lang niya kay World Bank, kasi si World Bank, so for reconstruction and development siya. Si IMF, ang ino-oversee niya ay stability ng monetary system natin. So, mga currencies, okay? Ang goal ni World Bank to reduce poverty, although ganun din naman kay IMF, pero si IMF, ang primary na target niya or nang minomonitor niya ay ang monetary system. Yung system ng exchange rates, international payments, na nag-enable sa countries and citizens to transact with each other. So, that is IMF. Now, let's move with the World Trade Organization. Eto, medyo familiar din tayong lahat. So, ano ba si World Trade Organization? It operates a global system of trade rules. It acts as a forum for negotiating trade agreements, settles trade disputes between members, and supports the needs of developing countries. So, si World Trade Organization, under niya yung GATT, okay, tsaka si GATS. So, later we will discuss this. Ang primary purpose ni World Trade Organization ay magkaroon ng open trade for the benefit of all. So, ayan, for example, if there are disputes between the members of the WTO, um, sila yung bahalang mag-ayos. So, yun. So, they will negotiate trade agreements. So, yun. Kasi gusto nila magkaroon na, before di ba kasi, ang daming trade barriers, ang daming trade blocks. Pero si World Trade Organization, gusto niya na i-lessen yung mga yon para makapag-trade ang lahat sa iba't ibang bansa. Now, sabi ko nga kanina, ayan, si GATT or General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, si GATS naman, so General Agreement on Tariffs and Services. So si GATT ay sa products, si GATS ay sa services. So after World War II, ang ang nangyari, yung world trading system ay na-restrict. Parang naging trend na mayroong mga discriminating trade practices. So, ang mahal ng kuha sa bigas, ang mura ng kuha sa bigas, tapos ang mahal ng kuha sa mga gantong, alam mo yun, yung parang hindi masyadong equal. So, there's discrimination with the trade practices after ng World War II. So, ang nangyari, so kinreate nila yung GATT, so yun, it creates a credible and reliable system of international trade rules. Sila ang gumagawa ng sistema, they ensure fair and equitable treatment of all participants. Ayan, ayaw nila ng may discrimination or at least malesen yung discrimination, stimulating economic activity through guaranteed policy bindings, and promoting trade and development through progressive liberalization. So I have read, si GATT, ang primary purpose niya is to liberalize trade. Okay, so imagine that. So yun. So si GATT, the most favored nation concept or MFN concept, yun yung pinapatupad niya, whereby lahat ng country agrees to extend to all countries the most favorable terms. Okay, so for example, you're going to import or export something to other countries, um, ang principle ni GATT ay dapat most favorable yung terms dun sa bansa na yon. it's the same with you. Kapag yung ibang bansa naman yung nagdala sa'yo, most favorable terms yung dapat na ibigay nila sa'yo. So this helps reduce the trade barriers. So the next thing about the economic environment is the income and purchasing power parity around the globe. So when a company charts a plan for global market expansion, syempre kapag nag-iisip na yung isang company, nagpaplano na to expand globally, it often finds that for most products, income is the single most valuable economic variable. So income talaga yung primary consideration. So, especially kapag business ito for profit. Okay, so income talaga. After all, a market, we can define market as a group of people willing and able to buy a particular product. So, ang isa sa pinag-aaralan is the purchasing power of that particular area na pagtatayuan ng another branch or ng international business. So, that is for our purchasing power parity. Next, let's move to the key economic issues that influence international business. So ano ba yung mga issues or mga problema na or mga pangyayari na nakaka-affect okay in our international business? First thing is the inflation. So what is an inflation? So familiar naman na tayo dito, the pervasive and sustained rise in the aggregate level of prices measured by an index of the cost of various goods and services. It results when demand grows faster than supply. Kapag maraming may kailangan ng particular products tapos kumukonti yung supply, of course, nagkakaroon ng pagtaas ng presyo. So that is the law of supply and demand. Naalala, if you remember then last time in our last unit, I ask you, bakit hindi nagpiprint ng maraming pera ang BSP? 'Di ba isa sa magiging disadvantage nun kapag nagprint ng maraming pera ay hyperinflation. Sobrang tataas ng mga presyo kasi mas marami tayong pambili. Therefore, kukulangan yung supply. So, yun. So ang gagawin ng mga companies, they will increase the prices. Magkakaroon ng inflation. So, yun. So, imagine the impact of inflation sa cost of living natin. Bakit? Kasi madalas pa ang inflation kesa sa pagtaas ng sahod, pagtaas ng income ng mga tao within a particular area, especially lalo ngayon sa country natin. So, okay lang sana if magtataas yung presyo pero tataas din yung sahod natin. Pero that is practically impossible. Pwedeng mangyari pero it's parang medyo malabo. Okay, so yun. So, inflation is one of the economic issues na pwedeng maka-affect sa purchasing power ng isang bansa when it comes to international businesses. For example, alam mo naman na sa ganitong particular na bansa na to, mataas ang inflation. Tapos gusto mo mag-enter sa country na yon para sa market na yon para maging bagong market mo. So, ang isa sa iisipin mo, medyo mataas yung inflation dito. Ibig sabihin, the purchasing power of people are quite lower, okay, compare sa mga bansa na medyo mababa ang pagtaas ng mga presyo nila. So that's one of the issues. Next is unemployment. So the unemployment rate is the number of unemployed workers divided by the total civilian labor force, which includes both with the unemployed and those with jobs. So in practice, when we measure the unemployed workers actually seeking work in various countries, medyo mahirap siyang um, malaman kung ilang percentage ba ang unemployed, tapos bukod pa kasi dyan yung unemployed na hindi naman talaga naghahanap ng trabaho or unemployed na naghahanap naman talaga ng trabaho, wala lang makita. So generally, people out of work and unable to find jobs depress economic growth. So, syempre, kapag mas maraming walang trabaho sa isang bansa, mababa yung purchasing power. So, it depresses the economic growth, it creates social pressure, and provoke political uncertainty. So, for example, papasok ka sa isang um, international business, magpo-put up ka ng branch sa ibang bansa, tapos maraming unemployed doon. Siyempre, kailangan i-consider yon. So, um, kapag pumasok ka doon, tapos mataas yung unemployment rate, it could be possible na mababa yung purchasing power nila. Or halimbawa naman, may branch ka na doon, tapos biglang nagkaroon ng recession doon, maraming natanggal sa trabaho, affected ka pa din. So, yun kasi, bababa yung purchasing power nila. So, that's for unemployment. Next is debt. Okay, so si debt, um, we will not talk about the debt of the people to each other, but the sum of government's financial obligations. It measures the state's borrowing from its population, from foreign organizations, from foreign governments, and from international institutions. So, isa sa nakaka-affect sa ating international businesses ay ang utang ng government sa iba't iba. For example, sa World Bank, sa other international institutions, and other foreign governments sa iba't ibang bansa. More recently, mas maraming countries yung humihiram ng pera sa international lenders to finance their movement to freer market, a process of economic transition. So, mas marami ngayon ang nangihiram sa ibang international lenders. So, many countries that began with this ambition, but that eventually failed, then increasingly had to rely on foreign debt. So, yun, kapag kulang talaga yung pera ng isang bansa, o kaya naman merong um, unexpected events. Like, for example, may bagyo, nasira yung bansa na to, tapos hindi naman sila ready for that, o kaya naman hindi enough yung emergency fund na meron sila, um, they will resort to lending sa international organizations, foreign governments, and international institutions. Paano ka maapektuhan as an international business nito? Siyempre, for example, gusto mong magtayo sa isang bansa na 'to, pero dahil nga they have the obligations sa iba't ibang pinagkakautangan nila, pwede nilang taasan yung um, taxes ng mga foreign institutions, or they can make another statutes or law about that kasi affected sila. So in one way or the other, maapektuhan din yung mga investments and mga businesses na pwedeng pumasok sa kanila. Next to that is the income distribution. So income distribution, it is not just a problem of poorer nations. This is actually a problem ng lahat ng bansa. Why? Kasi si GNI can misestimate the relative wealth of a nation's citizens. Um, Minsan kasi sa GNI, ang nakukuha lang niya ay yung mga majority, which is sa mga nasa city. Pero we have to understand that there is a strong relationship between skewed income distributions and the split between those who live in urban settings versus those who live in rural areas. There is a huge difference sa income distribution when it comes to rural and urban areas. Imagine, um, 'di ba magkaiba yung minimum natin kapag nandito sa city and minimum ng mga nasa province. So that is already an unequal income distribution. So when you go or when you plan to build your branch sa ibang bansa, so you have to think, yung place ba na uh, patatayuan mo has um, higher income distribution or mas mababa ba siya, and then what are you going to do with that? So ganon yung mga considerations that you have to do when you enter in an international businesses. Next is poverty. So lahat naman ito ay ito ang major economic issue na pwedeng maapektuhan ang international businesses. So, see poverty, it is a state of having little or no money, few or no material possessions, and little or no resources to enjoy a reasonable standard of life. Siyempre, kapag mas maraming mahirap sa isang bansa, mas mababa yung purchasing power nila. So, yun lang naman yun. So, in many parts of the world, workers and consumers struggle for food. Kahit na minsan may trabaho, they still struggle for food, shelter, clothing, and clean water, health services, safety, security, education. So minsan itong failure na to, it results in suffering, malnutrition, mental illness, death epidemics, famine, and parang ang pinaka-extent niya na or pinaka-grabe na pwedeng mangyari ay war. So dahil sa kahirapan, it could happen. Lastly, this is the last economic issues na pwedeng maka-affect sa international businesses ay balance of payments. So, balance of payments is officially known as the statement of international transactions. Anong ginagawa nito? It records a country's international transactions that take place between companies, governments, or individuals. Si international managers, ginagamit niya ang BOP or balance of payments as a comprehensive indicator of a country's economic stability. Siyempre, kapag si BOP kasi it tells you whether itong bansa na ito ay nagsisave enough para mabayaran yung imports niya. Kapag deficit sa balance of payment ng isang bansa, ibig sabihin, mas marami siyang ini-import na goods, services, and capital kesa sa ine-export niya. So, ibig sabihin, mas mababa ang income ng bansa na ito. So, mas mababa yung, hindi masyadong stable yung economy niya. Kapag mas mababa yung ini-export kesa sa ini-import ni or mas marami yung ini-import nila kesa sa ini-export nila, itong bansa na ito should borrow dahil nga wala silang income. Dahil sa export sila, isa ang export sa kinukuhaan nila ng income, they can borrow from other countries para mabayaran yung mga imports nila. So, kapag mas mataas ang import, hindi mababayaran ang uh, unequal ang import sa export ng isang bansa, ang kinukuha nila na products kesa sa inilalabas nilang products sa isang bansa, pwedeng merong economic instability sa bansa na iyon. Kaya BOP or balance of payments is really one of the key indicator ng economic stability ng isang bansa.